Hi everyone, welcome back to Ashley Talks Movies. Now, normally I do movie reviews on this channel, but I'm actually launching a brand new show here on the channel called The Recap, and it's basically going to be a show where I talk about all things entertainment and pop culture, and I'm going to have a co-host with me. His name is Jed, and he's a good friend of mine, and he loves talking about movies and entertainment and pop culture just as much as I do. So he's going to be joining me for this show. We're going to try to do it pretty often, probably about twice a month. And we're going to talk about all the big stories that everybody else is talking about and share some deep dives and hot takes on those topics. So, this is the first ever episode of this new show, The Recap. And we have a ton of topics to talk about today. But before we do, I'm actually going to have Jed take a moment to introduce himself to everybody because obviously, if you've been on this channel before, you know it's mostly just me. But Jed's going to be joining me again for this specific show. So Jed, take a moment to introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here for the first episode of the recap and to be the first co host on your channel. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I'm a video editor by trade. I've done all sorts of things. I've worked in the TV industry for things like a syndicated morning TV show, the Golf Channel, and I've done my own short films and that kind of thing. But at the core of everything, I'm just a pop culture nerd. I love the movies. Movies were my escape because I grew up in a small town. So I loved theater and I loved movie theaters and all those things that would allow me to escape where I was from for a little bit. And I'm here happy to be talking about it with you.
Yay. And that's exactly why I asked Jed on because I knew that he loved talking about this stuff. Like, I remember the first time we met, it was literally like we just started talking about like Hollywood entertainment and literally just talked for hours.
Yes.
So
I
this seemed
love it
like a
because
natural
Ashley
fit.
knows about everything. Yeah, it's fantastic. So
Yes. So I'm super excited. Like I said, Jed's going to be joining me. So his face will be very familiar to all of you as we continue and embark on this brand new journey. All right. So as I already said, we have a show that is filled with stuff to talk about, and so we're just going to get right into that first topic. And it's one that I thought when I first heard this news, it like shocked me. I was like just completely shocked about this news, and that was Amazon getting creative control of the James Bond franchise. Now, I'm a huge James Bond fan. I've seen every single James Bond movie,
oh wow. Yeah,
and
that's better than me.
oh yeah, no, I listen. I've seen every single James Bond movie. I've not read the books,
Mhm.
but I've seen all the movies, and you know, Daniel Craig is probably right up there as one of my favorite Bonds. Um, and so when I saw this news, I was really shocked because anyone that's been a fan of the James Bond franchise, especially if you know a lot about the franchise, you know that the creative control has been in the hands of the Broccoli family. Barbara Broccoli and her half brother have had creative control. Her half brother, Michael G. Wilson, have had control of this franchise for decades. And before she did, it was her father. And they handle everything from, you know, who gets cast as James Bond to the look of Bond, you know, every little detail goes through them. And now they're ceding creative control to Amazon. So Amazon will be able to make those decisions. So Jed, what do you think about this news? How did you
I
react?
I was like you. I was shocked because I feel like a couple weeks before there was some things where Amazon was wanting to do some things with Bond and the Broccoli family was pushing back. And then the next thing I knew, it was oh, they're going to give up control to Amazon. And it was like, whoa, what was that turnaround like?
Hmm.
Uh, I'm like you. I'm shocked. Now, I think this could be good
Mm.
in some ways, in that I think people that are newer to James Bond, they're not going to want to go back. And I feel like the older Bond movies may come off as cheesy to like the newer generation, especially if
Hmm.
you grew up with the Daniel Craig stuff, which was much more serious than like the Roger Daltrey or yeah,
Roger
Roger
Moore
Daltrey.
and Sean
Roger Moore.
Connery
Yes,
and
yes, sorry.
yes. Hmm.
But like Um, so this is a chance for them to go back and maybe do some of those like the classic novels, um, as either a movie or a series or something like that. Like I could see a lot of potential in this being like a TV series, um,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, taking Bond in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to be optimistic, but I also fear the worst. So I don't know
Yeah,
how you feel about it.
I think for me and some other fans, I mean, I agree with you to an extent. I do think this is a chance to take Bond in a different direction. It could be a good thing. You know, sometimes when you have certain people in control of certain things for a really long time, you get a very, sort of narrow view of things, right? It gets sort of stale, it gets sort of stuck. And sometimes you need some outside perspectives to come in and shake things up and make it fresh again. I think the concern for me and some other fans is what exactly is Amazon going to do with
Right.
Bond? Because obviously, when they bought MGM, what was it, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, for like billions of dollars? I don't remember the exact amount. Um, they wanted to get it because, well, actually, I think they bought it in 2022. Um, they wanted MGM because MGM had the rights to Bond. I mean, it came with a bunch of other movies and TV shows, but the crown jewel of that purchase was access to Bond. And ever since then, the last James Bond movie that came out was No Time to Die with Daniel Craig, and that came out in, was it 2021? So you have, like, you haven't had a new Bond movie in a while. There hadn't been a lot of movement with a new Bond movie, and so I think, Amazon probably was getting frustrated. They're like, we spent all this money, we have
Yes.
access to Bond. Why can't we make something? I don't know what, the deal was that made, Barbara Broccoli and her half brother decide to give control. I mean, I'm sure there was some kind of, like, monetary agreement and everything like
Oh,
that. But
sure.
I imagine that was the frustration. And which again makes sense from, a business standpoint. I get that, but my concern would be how much of Bond is going to be enough for Amazon, right? Because it's one thing if you have a movie or two coming out. It's another thing you have a movie or two coming out. You've got a miniseries. You've got specials. I think you can oversaturate things. This is kind of
For
what we
sure.
saw with, like, Disney with Star Wars,
That's
right?
exactly what I was
There was,
thinking. Yes.
yeah, like there was just so much Star Wars, and then it was just the audience couldn't keep up, and then it was like people started tuning out, right? And I don't know. Again, that would be my concern with Amazon. It's like they might do too much Bond because they're like, we got to get our money back, got to get our money's worth for this. But who knows? I guess we'll have to see. My big question will be who's going to be Bond,
Exactly.
which
Yes.
Jeff Bezos asked that question um, after this whole announcement came out. But that's going to be the big thing. It's like, who's going to be
Now,
Bond for the next
I had
foreseeable?
heard people had already been auditioning for it. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I heard Henry Cavill was one, but I heard like not so great things about his audition, and he seems
Yeah, I
too
mean,
big
I
for
I don't
me.
know who has been, like,
Yeah.
recently auditioning. I know there's been, like, a lot of, like, fan casting and rumors and stuff, and I know, yeah, like, I don't know if Henry Cavill would be a great Bond. I mean, maybe if this was like 7 years ago, I could have maybe seen Henry Cavill as
Yes.
Bond,
Agreed.
because he was like, he has the look. I
Hmm.
mean, and he can totally do it. I mean, he's been in other movies where you're like, this is very Bond coded, like characters that he's played. Um, but I don't know. Maybe they need to just go in a completely different direction, kind of like what
Well,
they did with Daniel Craig.
Well, I was going to
Get
ask
the
you, how would you
unsurprising
feel
person.
if they changed it up and it was like a female Bond or a Bond of
No,
it, different ethnicity or
no,
something like that?
I'm very much of that person where I don't really want to. I don't like to switch the gender swap. Like, I'm fine with they do like a 007 spinoff, kind of like what was the character in No Time to Die? Lashana Lynch's character. She was like another 007 agent. She
Hmm.
wasn't Bond, but she was another 007
Yeah.
agent. So you can do that, I think, and that would work. Like a spinoff of a different agent, still a 007 agent because it's like a classification of agent, but not that character being Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I just had a bad inkling of like I could see like Amazon doing a reality show called like the 007 Academy. Like, can you?
See, okay, so in that, see, that's a concern, like, right? Like,
Yeah,
it could be,
yeah.
let's do a reality show where we cast, we cast a Bond,
Or
or you go to
even if it's
Bond
not that,
finishing
it's just
school,
like American Ninja Warrior, but it's like, could you do these spy
Bond,
things or
yeah,
something?
like, can you,
Yeah, like super
yeah, so
cheesy.
that, yeah, and I'm like, oh, I don't want that at all.
Yeah, no.
So, we might have just given them ideas, but anyway,
Yes. Please don't listen,
um,
Amazon.
yeah, so don't do this. Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. And all of you, let us know who you think should play Bond in the comments. All right, so speaking of franchises, we're going to switch over to another very popular franchise that's getting a reboot. It's the Harry Potter series is coming to Max or HBO, and John Lithgow is set to play Dumbledore. Now, this was rumored for a little bit, and then he actually confirmed this.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm actually kind of okay with this. I think John Lithgow is a really good actor, and I think he can take on the role of Dumbledore for
We know
sure.
he can do a disappointed face. We saw it at the Oscars last night,
Yeah,
so that was pretty
yes, he
good.
can do it.
Um,
Disappointed. Yeah.
you know me, I love John Lithgow. We've seen him do, like Winston Churchill and that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. So obviously this is a change of pace because it's an American actor stepping in, which was like a big no-no in the original movies. So we're already
Mm-hmm.
breaking that.
Mm-hmm.
And before I was thinking like, who would I have cast? Like if I had to do a British actor, and I wasn't sure, but then
Mm-hmm.
over the weekend I saw an interview. Actually, John Lithgow is going to be in a movie with Jeffrey Rush that's coming out soon, and I'm like, oh, Jeffrey Rush
Oh,
would have been a
Jeffrey
good,
Rush.
yeah,
I don't
um,
know. Would he have been a good Dumbledore though? I
yeah,
feel like
I could
he
see
would be
it.
good in like I don't know. I don't know if he would be a good Dumbledore.
Who would you cast him as?
Maybe Snape? No, not
Really?
Snape. No,
Yeah, that's too
Severus
old.
Black. Severus Black.
He's still too old, I think. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure, but I was like, oh, like he's good. I mean, like
I
if
mean, I
you,
could see him in this Harry Potter series. I just
yeah,
don't know. I don't
I'm
think he would
surprised
be
he
a good
hasn't been
Dumbledore.
in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like he would have been good. And again, I think John Lithgow is going to be great at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to see what his take is. I mean, the whole show is going to feel a little bit different than the movies, so we already got to get used
Mm-hmm.
to that. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's in good hands. It's an interesting choice to use an American actor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not that concerned about it because it is John Lithgow, and I know he's going to bring 100% to that role.
Yeah. What is interesting though, when I was reading the article about this, is with this new series, they basically plan to have each season cover one book,
One book, yeah.
right? So there were 7 books, so they're tentatively planning like 7 seasons, which is a long time. Uh,
How long is John going to hold out for? Is that what you're
well,
wondering?
well, no, I mean, I bring this up because he joked that he would be 87 at the wrap party.
Wow.
So by the time, if it went according to plan and they start filming, I guess this year, by the time the series wrapped after 7 seasons, he'd be 87.
It's fine.
Yeah. So Uh, next up is I'm so curious about this one. I can't wait to get your thoughts on this. So, Io Edebiri is set to write a live action Barney movie. And this is not necessarily a news story. The IO part is new, but
Yeah.
they had previously announced that there was going to be a live action Barney movie. I think this was like back in 2019,
Oh,
actually.
wow. Okay.
And yeah, and Daniel Kaluuya, his production company, was actually going to be part of this. Now, his production company is still part of this, except he's not going to star in it or anything like that or write it. He's
Mhm.
just going to be producing it. But Io is going to be writing the script for this and starring in it. Of course, no plot details have been released, which is my biggest question. Like, what is it exactly going to be about? Is it going to be about the TV series, or is it going to be about a purple dinosaur that comes to life in front of kids? Is it going to be serious? Is it going to be a comedy? Is it going to be a dark comedy? Like, I have so many questions about what this Barney movie is going to be. Like, I don't
Right.
know. It's from A24, but I don't know if they're, taking inspiration from like the Barbie movie, right? Because Barbie became
Right.
this like huge blockbuster juggernaut, or what they're going to do with this. I have no idea.
I feel like, so I love Ao, obviously,
Hmm.
incredibly talented, super funny, but also can do, serious stuff on the
Hmm.
bear, obviously.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Love that
uh,
series.
so I feel like it's going to be a take of like, what if she was like a grown up and for some reason had to rely on like having that imaginary friend again
Mm.
or something like that. To me, that's what
Like
feels
she's
like the
going through
most natural fit.
a
Yeah.
excellent existential crisis,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and
Like
then she relies on her Barney
in a
imaginary friend.
in a world that we live in right now, wouldn't you love to like just escape for a little bit into like a world of imagination or something like that?
Interesting.
I
I could
could
see
see
that.
that kind of a thing, especially if she's going to star in it. I mean, yes, there
Hmm.
could always be a thing of like she has got a daughter and maybe she grew up, maybe she was one of the Barney cast members and then now her daughter is like, this is lame, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
there's different directions. I feel like it could be really fun now that Barbie has come out and shown us some like places where movies like this can go in
Hmm.
unexpected ways.
Hmm.
I just hope they don't play it safe, and A24 doesn't typically play it safe
Right.
on anything.
Right.
So,
Well, that's why I made a mention of the studio, because
yes,
obviously Barbie was Warner Brothers, which
right,
can be really safe and kind of mainstream. A24, Neon, those studios, they tend to do things a little bit more edgy,
yes.
um, and I love that, just because it mixes things up a little bit. But yeah, I saw this and I was like, very interesting. I really want to know the plot. Um,
I like.
that's my big question mark.
I want to know, did they select her or did she come in and pitch like an idea of like, I've got this great
Right.
thing for Barney,
Yeah, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're writing this.
Yeah,
That sounds great. Yeah.
yes.
I don't know, maybe. Interesting. Yeah.
I
Um
yeah, I never thought I would say I'm excited to see a Barney movie, but I am a little bit interested to see where this goes. So,
Yeah, I haven't watched Barney since I was like 6,
I mean, I might be
which was
worried if you
many,
had
many
been watching
decades
it on a
ago. I'm
regular
not going to say how
basis.
many decades ago, but that was
Yeah,
many decades ago. And then we got to talk about Hollywood's biggest night,
the main
right?
dish right here. Yes.
Yes. The Oscars. So first of all,
Yes.
what did you think of it? Like, just sort of overall thought.
Overall, I thought it well, I will say that this year I felt like I did not know where a lot of categories were going to wind up.
Oh, okay, like the results, like who was going to win
Right.
and things like that.
Especially earlier on. Now, as it went on, it seemed like Honora was quickly becoming the favorite
Hmm.
of the night, but there were some times where an award would go to like Conclave, or I mean, you had the songs that were going to Amelia Perez. So like, I was like, oh, maybe this will swing back around the other
Hmm.
way, or maybe they're going to split director and best picture. Like that's kind of what I was thinking about. As I texted you, I wondered if some of the like the current events going on with the Pope might push Conclave into the forefront. But as you had mentioned, and I didn't realize at the time that the voting actually cut off before all that
Hmm.
happened. So you would have had to have that in. But overall, I thought the show itself was a little meh.
Mm.
Um, I felt like it lost some steam partway through it. I wish
Hmm.
they would have kind of varied up some of the bigger awards with the smaller ones, just to keep it a little more interesting. Um,
Hmm.
Not that it was anything was that terrible or whatever, but like it just was just kind of okay. I did see some um, a headline today that was talking about how great of a job they thought Conan did, and
Hmm.
that it did keep moving and that kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't 100% know that I agree with that, but
Hmm.
you know. But what about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I watch the Oscars every year. Like the Oscars are like my Super Bowl. So for me, it's like this is like the night that I look forward to every year, every award season, right? And the last few years have been kind of lackluster. Not I'm not talking about like categories or winners or things like that, just like the overall show. And I think part of it was because it's coming out of the pandemic where like every award show is trying to like reconfigure itself and figure out like how to retool things, how to get the audience back, right? Ratings are a big deal with the award shows. They keep losing audiences every year because people stop watching the award shows. A lot of people don't care. And I think compared to some previous years, I think this one was a big improvement. I think it was interesting. It did, like you said, kind of lose momentum midway, and I think part of that was because of certain segments. We'll talk about one um, in a little bit. Certain segments that seem sort of misplaced. Like, why do we have this segment here? We could put something else here. You're just killing time here. Um, but I thought I'm a huge Conan fan. I love Conan. I
Mm-hmm.
wish he was still on late night,
Yeah.
television. And I think he did a good job. Honestly, I mentioned this. I posted this on social media. His opening monologue was fine. I mean, he did a lot of safe jokes. Um, he went for like sort of the easy punchlines. But honestly, like, you were just mentioning, sort of the current climate and things. I was fine with that. I didn't need anything super political. I didn't need anything, super edgy. I just needed something to chuckle at, make references to movies, take little quick jabs at some of the movies or some of the actors. And he delivered that. You know what I mean? And like, I was okay with it. And I thought he did, a good job, like throughout the rest of the show, kind of just showing up, delivering a punchline here or two, and then moving on to the next like segment. Um, so overall, I'd probably give it like a B.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good.
Uh,
Um,
Surprisingly, I thought he got edgier as the night went on because you know,
yeah, yeah. Well, he did. Yeah, he had a
it,
couple Drake. He had a Drake joke in there, and
yeah. But I thought, yeah, I thought a lot of his the two things that stood out to me about the opening is
Mhm.
I thought the LA tribute was a little weird. Um, I understand
In
they
the
had to,
opening.
yes, where
Oh,
they,
okay.
yeah, where they, it was like, hey, we love LA. Because at first I was like, why are they even doing this? I'm like, oh yeah, the fires, like that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like, hey, and then I felt like they had to justify why they were doing the show. Like, hey, I know all this tragedy went on and all this stuff, but I thought it
Hmm.
was a weird way to open it because it slowed it down, and then you have Conan coming out and doing like a normal monologue, and
Hmm.
then he did a musical number, which that's what felt out of place. Like that felt almost too Conan, like too um
Yeah,
like the sandworm thing from Dune, where they
was
brought it
playing the
back a couple of
piano.
times. Like that was funny. I
Hmm.
enjoyed that. Like that was well placed. The one thing that I did hear somebody say is that they had felt like the Oscars had become more snarky or more cynical in its tone, and that this year with Conan felt a little bit more of like, let's celebrate the movies, let's
Hmm.
celebrate like the people here and not cut them down a bunch or like whatever.
Yes,
And I think
yes.
I agree with that. Like I think he did keep it on a fairly positive note. I mean, he definitely took a dig at the president at one point, and he did at the star of Amelia Perez and
Hmm.
that kind of thing. But it's hard not to, because that is
Yeah,
a
and
major
but I felt like
story
there
of the
was a good
Oscars.
balance of that. Like it wasn't
Yes.
so many previous years have been like they get a host and the host is edgy and it's like let's roast everybody in the room. And so you always have, and you could kind of tell like at the beginning of the show where people were sort of hesitant to laugh
Mhm.
because I think they were like kind of nervous to like, is he gonna come after me? Like, is he gonna pick on me, or is it gonna just be like something lighthearted? Because so often, again, I watch the Oscars every year, and so often it's you have this host, they'll be really edgy, and they're going to roast a celebrity, and it's like, okay,
Well,
yeah, that can be funny at times, but also this is supposed to be a night of celebration. Like,
right.
as someone who loves film, like, I mean, if I was in the audience, I would hate it. I would not want to be sitting in there potentially getting roasted on a night where I should be like, celebrating my peers or like my work or whatever it may be. As someone who loves film and loves watching film, like I honestly don't want to sit there and watch someone get roasted. I want to hear about like the movies that I watched and hear more about like the filmmaking process and all that kind of stuff. And again, celebrate cinema, like the
Mhm.
beautiful things that make people want to be part of the movies or to transport people to these beautiful places. So that's why I was like, I felt like it was a better balance of like, let's get back to sort of like, this is an award ceremony, it's a night of celebration, and people are here, they're dressed up, they're going to get awards. Yes, sure, it's a lot of like, let's pat ourselves on the back because we're famous and
Sure.
we make movies, but that's why I'm tuning in. Like I know
Right.
exactly what it is. Like I'm not it's like, oh, these are rich people. Like, yeah, this is I mean, talented rich people. Um so yeah, so I mean, yeah, I was happy with that. I didn't want a lot of like political discourse and dialogue. I just wanted to focus on movies and that's pretty much what the show did,
Yes.
I
I
think.
was actually surprised there weren't more political messages in the speeches. But like you, I'm glad that we could separate that for like an evening and just kind of tune out.
Yeah. Oh, I think
Everything.
I think the fires had a lot to do with that. This
Mhm.
is a community that is rebuilding. Just the previous years, they had the writers' strike, right? So a lot of it is like, let's get back to making movies. Let's get back to talking about movies. Let's get back to celebrating movies. Even Sean Baker, when he did his speech, his like second or third speech of the night, he spent one of them talking about like the movie going
Yeah.
experience, right? Like let's save theaters, like go to the movies, watch movies on the big screen, make movies for the big screen, his like call to action for other filmmakers. um
There was even a
because
bit about that with
yeah,
Conan.
like I mean, and I was like, yeah, because I you know me, I'm at
Yeah.
the movie theater like once or twice a week. I love going to the movies. I don't. I feel like you can't replicate that experience even at home. At least even with the technology you have now. It's just so different. So yeah, I think it was just that sense of like let's just celebrate Hollywood and movies and the magic of that. So yeah, so let's talk about favorite moments of the night, surprising moments of the night. I'll talk about one of my biggest surprises.
Yeah.
I filled out a ballot. I did the whole thing.
What did you end up with? What was the final total?
Oh, I didn't even do the final tally.
Oh,
And I
oh, oh.
posted a video on the YouTube channel, obviously, where I did my predictions, and I made predictions in every single category, and I did relatively well. I knew I wasn't going to do well with the like animated shorts and things like that, just because I typically don't do well with that at all. Um, but I got all of the major categories right, with the exception, and this was my biggest surprise, Best Actress. I was so sure Demi Moore was going to win. I just knew it. I knew it. I knew she was going to win, and she didn't. It went to Mikey Madison, which I wasn't upset about, because I liked Nora, and even in my video that I posted, I said every time I was making a prediction and I picked Nora for something, I was like, I know people probably not going to agree with me on this, but I think Nora's going to have a big night.
Yeah.
I just had this sense, like I could tell, like Nora was one of my favorite movies last year, and I really felt the Academy latched onto that movie. And I was like, I think it's gonna do well. But of course, I didn't pick Mikey Madison for best actress, because I was just so sure that they were gonna give it to me.
I
But
I was too.
that didn't happen.
But I also like when you think about the movie that Demi was up for,
Yeah,
um, it's a movie about how uh, older female actors age out of the system. People don't want them. Blah blah blah. Here's your chance to give that person an award, and instead you go with the youngest person that's in that category. Not saying
Yeah,
that.
that wasn't lost on me. I mean,
Yeah.
the parallels are like, ah.
What did we learn from The Substance? Apparently nothing, because we went.
Art imitates life. Life
Yes,
imitates art.
exactly. I mean, I think Mikey.
Also, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Oh,
No,
what I was gonna say was also, it's a body horror movie, and I
yes.
feel like if I had thought about it a little bit more, I probably like, well, I wonder if that like excluded some people because, the Academy is notorious. You always see those articles in like Hollywood Reporter and Variety, the anonymous ballot, right?
Yeah.
And it's somebody who's like, yeah, I didn't watch the creepy body horror movie. I don't have stomach for that. I just voted for,
Yeah.
like,
Right. Yes.
why why do you get to vote? You didn't
The
watch it.
uh
Uh,
yeah, I
um,
there are definitely people like that, and I do think, I mean,
yeah,
it's not saying that Mikey did a great job in this. When I
yeah,
originally saw Nora, I was like, yeah, like I could totally see her taking home the Oscar for this.
hmm
But then what Demi had for her was like the story. Like, here
hmm
she was a big, she's even said she was told she was a popcorn actress or whatever.
hmm
And now here she was breaking out of that mold, and you know not to say that older people can't have great roles. Obviously they can, but they're fewer and far between, especially for women, unfortunately. um
hmm
and here she had this opportunity, and everybody was talking about it. And like, I knew The Substance was not going to take home Best Picture, but I'm
right.
really kind of surprised it didn't take home this one.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I was determined. I was just like, I knew it. I just knew it. And I think that was honestly one of the biggest surprises of the night. Everything else was relatively, I don't think there were really that many big surprises.
No, I
Um,
wouldn't have picked Sean Baker for editor. My problem with Honora was that, and not to spoil anything for anybody, but there is a character that goes missing, and they have to go look for them, and that goes on way too long, and it's
mhm,
basically the same thing over and over again. And they could have easily taken like 20 to 30 minutes out of that movie and made it much tighter, and to me, like, that would have pushed it for me into, like, yes, this is Best Picture. I thought it was going
mhm.
to be for editing Conclave,
Yeah, I
because
did too. I did too.
tension in there, in those scenes. I mean, that movie really surprised me, because I went into it like, I don't think I'm going to care about this. And then the
Mhm,
more I heard about it, I was like, oh, that is kind of interesting. And then I watched it, and I'm like, holy cow, this is great. And to me, it kind of played to those traditional things that the Academy likes. A
mhm,
lot of established actors, just, something that we've seen over and over again. So
mhm,
kudos for them for going with Honora overall. But I was surprised, because I thought they would probably lean more towards Conclave
mhm.
in the end, and that didn't happen. So I am
Yeah.
kind of bummed about Rafe Fiennes, like the fact that he does not have an Oscar. And now
Yeah.
Adrian Brody has two, and I'm sure, I have not seen The Brutalist. I'm sure he does an amazing job, but I also
His
know that,
acting is phenomenal in
yeah,
that movie. I mean, I can't argue with it. And I picked him as winning, um, because his performance is amazing. I mean, it just hands down. I feel like his performance was the best one too. And I love Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, and I love Ray Fiennes in Conclave. But yeah, I just was like, and I wrestled with that too because I was like, I wonder if, I mean, I know Adrian Brody's like the strongest contender right now because he has the best performance, but I was like, but Ray Fiennes has been around for a while and he's never won an Oscar, and would
now
the
what I
Academy be like,
heard, going back
let's
to what
do it for him,
yeah,
you
what
know?
going back is that, according to the anonymous ballots and stuff like that, people thought he had already won.
Oh
and that's why
gosh.
they didn't vote for him. But again, that's why like people don't know. Like,
These
stop voting.
people who have are able to vote in the academy, I feel like they have to they should take a test first. They should
Yes.
be able to take a test to see if they're still eligible to vote. Because every time I read one of those anonymous ballot articles, I just get so upset. I'm like, how is it you can vote in the academy and you either don't watch half the movies or they have some really warped opinions
Yes.
about like everything. You're like, what? There's no wonder the Oscars turn out the way they do because some of these voters are just like, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, the
But
nitpicky, like, oh,
um,
I saw this person one time and they didn't say hello to me, so I'm not going to
so I
vote for
decided
them
not
for
to watch their
best actor.
movie. Like,
Petty. They're petty
yeah, you're
people.
like, okay, yeah, we're
Maybe
supposed to
we shouldn't be.
celebrate.
Maybe we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, I feel like that's every industry. Like, there's always somebody
Yeah,
that's like, "How do you not know this? Like, this is your job."
yeah, that's
Yes.
true. That is very true. Um, I'm trying to think. Oh, there was one that I should have probably anticipated, but I was just so there was another one I was like, I'm so sure that it's going to go this way. And that was like animated feature film. I thought it was going to go to The Wild Robot, and I had seen Flow,
Hmm.
and I thought it was good. But I was like, I think the Academy was going to do The Wild Robot, and they didn't. They went with Flow. Which
They
again,
went
I
with
wasn't
a lot of like
shocked.
international features or
Yeah,
things this time, which was kind of cool.
yes. Although I was very happy because in my on my ballot and in my video, um, I was like, I'm only gonna pick two categories for Amelia Perez because I'm sure that's where the Academy is going, and I hope they don't give that movie anything else because I mean I wasn't a fan of that movie um, at all. Like I watched it and I remember after watching it thinking, how did this movie get so much hype? What what am I missing here? Because
Well,
I don't get it.
did you hear the answer to that question?
What?
Um, they hired the same group that the Weinsteins used to use to
Oh,
campaign.
for their okay.
Yeah.
You're right, but
So
I'm saying even before it was like winning all the awards. I remember like when it was just released, like it was which festival was it? I can't remember.
yeah, I
Where it
can't
debuted, and it was
remember.
like
I
standing
don't remember.
ovation. And everybody kept talking about this, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to see this movie then. Like when is I gotta watch it? Like everybody's doing a standing ovation, is praising this movie. It's a musical. It's singing. Okay, and then I finally watched it, and I was like, I am so confused
Yes.
by this. It's a musical where the music is not very great,
And
very
yet
good
it
at
wins best
all.
song, like
Wins Best Song. Um, it's a French film, but it's in Spanish and
hmm
it's set in Mexico. I just there was, and then of course, yeah. So anyway, I didn't, I wasn't, I didn't get that at all. But I knew again, I was basing all my predictions on how I thought the Academy was going to vote. And I was like, well, I know Zoe Saldana is going to get it. There's been no, it was kind of like Kieran Culkin, where
Yeah.
it's like, no one else has been touching her in this category and the other awards. I don't see anything happening, changing here. Just also because I think, people like Zoe Saldana and they're rooting for her. And she's also one of those that's been in a lot of movies and hasn't won an Oscar. Granted, I wish she would have won an Oscar for something different, but that's okay. And then I knew that they were going to give the song because it's a musical, and I just knew they were going to give a song to Amelia Perez, and I
Gross.
was like,
Yeah.
whatever. But I was happy that it didn't get international feature and went to I'm Still
Yes.
Here, which is amazing. I caught that one before a couple weeks before the ceremony, and I
That's
was
one that's
blown
on my
away by it.
like that's one I really want to see. So
And I honestly wonder, because I don't know. I mean, I didn't see the ballots, right? I wasn't like checking people's ballots, they turned them in or anything. So I don't know how, people voted in terms of that, but I do wonder if like maybe this movie had been out sooner. I mean, I don't know what access like, Academy voters had to this. I mean, obviously they always put up screenings for them
mhm.
and things like that. But I just wonder if like maybe uh, if the movie had been released a little earlier and that had been in the conversation, if it would have done better. Because literally after I saw it, this was a few weeks before the ceremony, and I think right around the time that voting was concluding, because they had extended it because of the fire and things like
Mhm.
that. I started seeing more comments about "I'm still here" from like people in the industry, like on social media and stuff. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I finally caught I'm Still Here," and it's amazing.
Mhm.
And I thought the same thing. Like I saw the movie and I was like, "Why is this movie not getting more recognition and attention?" Like the movie is phenomenal. It's beautiful. Like it fits every box that Hollywood loves in terms of movies like this. And then Fernanda Torres, her performance is just I was just like, and I thought maybe she could do the upset here
Mhm.
because she's so good. But again, I think it just happened. It just wasn't in the
Well,
conversation.
that's
But
what. So my favorite movie of the year um, was Better Man. Did you see that one?
yes, okay, that
Um,
was good. Yeah, that was very good.
and I thought, like, first of all, I was like, this is so weird and like such a weird idea. I'm actually a huge Robbie Williams fan, so I was going to see it no matter what.
Hmm.
But I went in there and I remember leaving with my friends and everybody going, I would have never guessed a movie about a CGI monkey would make me feel all the emotions from like
Mm-hmm.
happy and excited to like crying and everything else, but it did. And
Hmm.
I don't know why it worked, but it worked. And
Hmm.
then the only thing it was up for the Oscars was the visual
Visual effects.
visual effects.
Yeah.
And but I feel like it's just nobody saw it. I wish that movie would have done a slow release in some of the festivals and then come out like wide.
Hmm.
I think that would have catapulted that a lot farther than what it did. But it won awards
Yeah.
in England, obviously, and some of
Yes.
those other
It needed
international.
better marketing because it did
Yeah,
well. Like you said, it did well in England. That's because people in England know who Robbie Williams
sure.
is.
Yes, right.
I know who Robbie Williams is because that nerdy kid that listened to his music, in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I knew who he was. But I think majority of American audiences didn't, and they marketed this movie as just like, oh yeah, it's the story of Robbie Williams,
Yeah,
and people are
this
like,
guy that you
who?
don't know. Do you mean
Yeah,
Robin
like who?
Williams? Like,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
exactly.
no,
I mean,
Robbie
people were asking me,
Williams.
they're like, is it Robin Williams? Like, no, no,
No,
no,
no, no.
Robbie Williams. It's not the. It's not. And then you're like, okay, you've lost.
You've
You've
alienated
lost your.
everybody because they don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
know.
But that was
Um,
one movie that like I still think about and again it didn't not that it necessarily should have been best picture or anything like that, but I
mhm.
think it could have fared better, and that one to me was just a standout because it was different. It did something with the biopic, which to me is like the ones that have won in the past, like the Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff like that. I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, okay,
Mm-hmm. It's the
sure.
same
Or
kind
complete,
of.
and yeah,
Yeah.
where they give up at one point and it's just songs for whatever reason, and like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, at least this is doing something different. But I think out of the crop, I still think I gravitate. I liked Honora a lot. If Honora would have just been a tad shorter, and I think that would have easily been my favorite of the year. But I think out of the crop that was up for Best Picture that I saw, I
Mm-hmm.
would say probably Conclave was my favorite. What about you?
Yeah, I honestly, before, like when I was first sort of figuring out my predictions, I literally had Conclave taking like Best Picture, um, adapted screenplay, like all these, because I was like, it's such a solid movie. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
across the board, it's just the pacing is great, the acting is great, the story is great, the cinematography is great, the costuming is great. Like everything, the movie hit every box. But then also, as I was just told you, like I also felt this sense that there were these other movies that people were really sort of like championing,
Mm-hmm.
and I started. I'm like, I think, I mean, Conclave, it's a great movie. It was one of my favorites, is up there. But I was like, I think Honora and even maybe The Brutalist is gonna be more in the conversation here. And then of course the AI stuff happened with The Brutalist, and I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that kind of knocked it out a little bit. I was ready to like write off Amelia Perez because I was just like, I'm not entertaining that idea. at all. Like,
Yeah, I think
I'm
there would
not
have been
doing
pitchforks and
it.
torches had that one best picture, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, but yeah. Oh, so I did want to mention one other thing too, because you were talking about the pacing and stuff, and we literally just talked about this in the earlier part of this of the show where we were talking about the James Bond, but they had a James Bond tribute in the middle of the ceremony. And I don't know how you felt about that, but to me, it just sort of like seems so out of place, just
mhm.
given the recent news about the franchise. And it was like, is this like? I saw people on social media like, is this an in memoriam for Bond? The
It
way
did
this
feel a little like
tribute,
that, yeah. Like, remember
it's
this?
like,
Well, it's dead now, so
yes, it's like what they would cut to like Barbara Broccoli in the audience, just like sitting there like like, I'm like, what is this? I don't know. I felt like they could have cut that,
I didn't
like
love
eliminated
the
that, and it maybe extended the actual in memoriam because they left out some people.
yeah, I always think that's
Um,
fascinating who doesn't make it in there. Because
yeah,
I thought at first I was like, there's no way Gene Hackman is going to be in the montage because like he just died, so that's why they're doing like him up front with Morgan Freeman, which I'm like, that's
mm-hmm,
cool. And then he was at
mm-hmm.
the end, and I'm like, well, what about all these other people that didn't get in? You know, like
That
so.
died like before he did, and
Yeah, yes.
yeah, around the well, because people are like, oh, Michelle Trachtenberg's not in it, and yeah, she technically was in more television than she was in film, but literally her first role was Harriet the
Yeah.
Spy movie.
Which
She
I
was in
didn't
Disney
realize until
movies,
she passed away. I didn't know that was her.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she was in like Ice Princess Disney
Mhm.
movie. She was in Inspector Gadget. Um, she was in was it Black was she just in Black Christmas? I don't remember. There was a bunch of other stuff that she was in movie wise. And her death was reported the same day as Gene Hackman. I mean, granted, Gene Hackman is more of a legend,
Yes, right.
but given her age and everything, I thought sure if they can, I don't know. It's always like you said, it's always interesting to see who makes the cut, who doesn't,
Right.
and the reasons why. But
Um
um,
but
but yeah,
going back
so
to James Bond real quick, like I felt like yes, I was like you. I thought it was weird. I also remembered I was like, didn't they just do this? But I looked it up and they did a 50th celebration of James Bond back in 2013, I think.
oh
So
okay,
it's
so
been
it's
a
been
little while,
over, yeah.
but I'm still like, what brought this on? I also thought now I
Well, I
love
wonder if it was planned before that announcement was made.
but then why? Like what there's no like anniversary,
Oh
there's
yeah,
no
like
new
okay, I see what you're
movie.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah. Like
I don't know.
and then the other thing that I thought was strange, I love the movie The Wiz. But that
Mm-hmm.
Quincy Jones tribute was like just that one song and it was I don't know if you're familiar with The Wiz, but like
I am.
Queen Latifah to me was more dressed like the witch in that, and then she was singing "Ease on Down the Road," which is the Scarecrow's song. So like I was like, this is
I
like a mixed bag of stuff.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if it was like they were, they adjusted for time or they just that was already how it was planned. But if they had like eliminated that James Bond tribute for whatever reason that was there, um, again, they could have allotted more time to the in memoriam or the Quincy Jones tribute. There could have been a medley. I mean, obviously he
Yeah, that
scored so many different movies. They made mention of that when they first were, doing the introduction to the tribute to him,
right. And I
and
thought
how
that's where we were
prolific
going.
his
Yeah,
movie. Yeah, so like, yeah, she's saying the one song. It's like do a medley, like
yeah.
sing part of this and then add this in, and you could have had some shots in the background, like
Mhm.
clips from movies and things. Yeah,
It
there was
writes
some weird. There
itself.
were some
Like
weird segments.
yes,
Like again, overall, I think the show was fine. But yeah, some of the segments, I'm like, this felt rushed, or like, did you not have enough time, or you just thought, well, okay, Quincy Jones tribute. Let's do a song from The Wiz. All right,
yeah,
next tribute, James Bond.
yeah.
Like you're just,
But I
it just,
wonder,
yeah.
do you think that they didn't do the performances of the best song nominees because of Amelia Perez? Like nobody wants to hear those songs again, so we'll just put in
Maybe,
these mont.
or just collectively there weren't. there wasn't a good crop of songs. Like if Wicked had been, I mean, they couldn't obviously put Wicked in there because it's not
Sure.
an original song, right? Next year, they can because
Yes.
there is a new original song they're doing for Wicked for Good. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't, I just think I don't know what the decision was. I don't know what made them make that decision. But if you look at the crop of songs there, it's like there's nothing there that's like memorable. There's nothing there that people would be automatically like sing along to, right?
Right. Yes.
So I was fine when they were like, we're not gonna go that direction. We're do
Yeah,
something completely different.
I
I was
was
like,
too,
I'm
but
okay with that because I'm
then
like,
part
I
of me
don't
was
know
like,
any of these
I
songs.
wonder if this had anything to do with that crappy musical that's out.
Well, I mean, they won best original song, and then the songwriters sang themselves off the
Oh yeah,
stage
that was cringy.
again, where I was just like, enough, enough,
It was a
go away,
decision.
go away. Um, but yeah, so yeah, Oscars is always a fun time, and I just wish my ballot had done a little bit better, but
Next
it's
year.
always next
You'll
year.
redeem yourself. Yes.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up this episode. Um, we like to for this show we like to end it with what we are calling one cool thing. So Jed and I will share a cool thing that we learned about, saw, did, and share it all with you. So Jed, I'll let you start. What's the one cool thing you want to share for this week?
Oh, I got a good one this week, Ashley. Um,
Okay.
one
Okay.
night only. One night only
Wait.
on Wednesday
Uh-oh.
night, you can go see one of the greatest movies of all time back in theaters, and I'm talking about Prince's Purple Rain is going to be back in theaters on Wednesday
Oh.
night. Only night you can see it, and then because it is the 40th anniversary, and they are about to release
Mm-hmm.
like the 4K Blu-ray special super edition or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if you have not seen this movie, all you people out
Mm-hmm.
there, go with the big group of people, because if you can experience it with a lot of other people, you are going to laugh at its absurdity and revel in its triumphs. And it's got one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time. Um, just go see it. And I'm so happy. But I also have to say that I sadly will not be able to go see it. We already had a previous engagement that night, but I have seen it in theaters. I saw it
Mm-hmm.
when Prince passed away, and I saw it. A local
Mm.
theater here had done it a few years before that, and
Okay.
it it's fantastic.
Very cool. Um, my one cool thing is the Blockbuster experience. I don't know if you've ever done that or heard of it.
I
Um,
just read an article about it the other day.
yeah. So it's basically this pop-up experience that it goes around the country. It's from the same people who own the last Blockbuster over in Bend, Oregon. So they put on this, pop-up experience, and they take it to like conventions and fairs. Right now it's here in Orlando. And it's really cool. They basically recreate a 90s Blockbuster store. So it's got like shelves and signage from actual Blockbuster stores. And they have tons of movies, like thousands of movies. And you can buy, VHS, Blu ray, DVD, $5 each. And they have it, sectioned off in different categories like action, comedy, family. They also have a section where they have like memorabilia, like movie props and things, snacks that you can buy, and then like merchandise that has like the last remaining Blockbuster kind of thing on it. It's very cool. Like it's a trip down memory lane if you grew up going to Blockbuster. I did. We also had like other like smaller video stores in my small town, but we did actually have a Blockbuster before like they went bankrupt and or went out of business and everything. um but yeah, it was really cool because it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm back at like the video rental store.